Walk into the vegetable aisle of almost any big supermarket and wait a moment. A soft hiss, a curtain of cool fog, and suddenly every lettuce leaf glistens. That mist looks like pure freshness. It is not only that. Watch the droplets settle on the lettuce. They catch the light like morning dew, as if the whole shelf was harvested at sunrise from a field just behind the store. Almost none of that is true. So what is the mist really doing? Part of the answer is genuine plant science. But the rest is a mix of psychology, weight, and money, hiding in plain sight above the broccoli. Rewind a few decades. Before misting machines, stores kept produce fresh the old way, with mountains of crushed ice and employees walking the aisle with hand spray bottles, spritzing the greens every few hours. Then, in the 1980s, automated misting systems began spreading through American supermarkets. Nozzles hidden above the shelves could bathe an entire wall of vegetables on a timer, no ice shoveling required. Some stores leaned into the theater. They installed speakers that played a low rumble of thunder just before the nozzles opened, turning a routine watering into a tiny indoor rainstorm for shoppers. To understand why misting works at all, you need one surprising fact. That lettuce on the shelf is not dead. Harvested fruits and vegetables are still alive, still breathing, still running on stored energy. Living leaves constantly lose water through tiny pores, a process called transpiration. In the field, roots replace that water. On a supermarket shelf, there are no roots. The leaf can only lose. As water escapes, the pressure inside each cell drops. Leaves go from crisp to rubbery to limp. A wilted head of lettuce might be perfectly safe to eat, but almost nobody buys it. Mist fights that collapse. A fine spray raises the humidity around the leaves and slows the water loss, keeping the cells plump and the leaves snapping crisp. Botanists call that firmness turgor pressure. So for leafy greens, spinach, kale, and herbs, the freshness story is real. Regular misting genuinely keeps them crisper for longer on the shelf. But that is only the first reason. The second reason lives in your head. Supermarkets learned long ago that shoppers do not judge freshness with laboratory instruments. We judge with our eyes, in about a second, from a few steps away. Water droplets on a leaf look like dew. And dew means morning, fields, and food picked hours ago. The mist borrows that imagery and sprays it directly onto the product. Consumer researchers have found that shoppers consistently rate shiny, droplet-covered produce as fresher and more appealing than identical dry produce, and they are willing to pay more for it. In that sense, the mist is staging. It works like the bright white light in a jewelry case or the smell of bread near the bakery, a cue engineered to trigger a feeling. Now for the third reason, the one stores mention least. In many supermarkets, vegetables are sold by weight. The scale at the register does not care what it is weighing. Leafy vegetables absorb some of that mist, and plenty more simply clings to the folds and crevices of the leaves. Every droplet that rides along to the checkout has a price. When your dripping lettuce hits the scale, you are paying vegetable prices for ordinary tap water. Not a fortune on any single purchase, but never nothing either. Tests have shown that misted greens can carry several % of extra water weight. Shake a wet bunch of kale over the floor and you can watch your grocery bill shrink. Now multiply that little bit of water across millions of shoppers and thousands of stores, every single day of the year. For a supermarket chain, mist quietly adds up to real revenue. There is a fourth reason, and this one saves stores money in the other direction. Retailers have a word for everything they cannot sell. The wilted, the bruised, the expired. They call it shrink. Wilted produce goes in the dumpster, and every discarded crate is pure loss. By keeping greens presentable for extra days, misting shrinks the shrink. The machine pays for itself in saved lettuce. But here is the tell that mist is not a universal freshness cure. Walk the same aisle and notice everything the nozzles carefully avoid. Mushrooms, onions, garlic, and potatoes despise moisture. Wet mushrooms turn slimy in hours. Damp onions sprout and rot. That is why they sit in dry racks, far from the artificial rain. Tomatoes, peppers, and most fruit also last longer dry. Their skins do not lose water quickly, so mist gives them no benefit, only a head start for mold. Because that is the dark side of moisture. The same humidity that keeps a spinach leaf crisp is also a perfect nursery for bacteria and fungus. Overmisting can actually speed up decay. So misting is a balancing act, engineered in short, timed bursts with droplets fine enough to raise humidity without soaking the shelf. Too little and the greens wilt. Too much and they rot. And once, the balance failed in a serious way. In 1989, an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Louisiana was traced back to a contaminated misting machine in a grocery store produce section. The bacteria had been growing in the machine's water reservoir and riding the mist into the air. Dozens of shoppers fell ill. The industry responded with new cleaning rules, filters, and redesigned systems. Modern misting systems are a long way from a hose on a timer. They use filtered water, sanitized lines, and precisely scheduled cycles, and health codes now treat them like any other food equipment. The engineering goes deeper than you would guess. Nozzles are tuned to produce droplets so fine they hang in the air like fog, wrapping the produce in humidity rather than drenching it. Here is another clue that mist is partly culture, not pure necessity. In many markets around the world, produce sections use little or no misting at all, relying on faster turnover and chilled displays. Farmers' markets rarely bother either. When vegetables travel from field to table in a day, nobody needs to simulate dew. The mist matters most when produce has already spent days in trucks and warehouses. Even the smell is part of the show. That clean, rainy scent after the nozzles hiss makes the whole aisle feel like a garden, and scent is one of the strongest triggers of memory and appetite. Retail designers call this sensory marketing: the thunder sound, the fog, the glistening leaves, the earthy smell. The produce section is the theater district of the supermarket, and mist is the special effect. None of this means you are being cheated, but a few habits help. Give wet greens a firm shake before bagging them, and you will stop paying lettuce prices for tap water. And once you are home, dry those leaves before they go in the refrigerator. The same moisture that flattered them under store lights will quietly turn them to mush in your crisper drawer. So the supermarket mist is three things at once: genuine plant science that keeps greens alive longer, clever stagecraft that sells freshness to your eyes, and a little extra water weight on the scale. It is a perfect example of how nothing in a supermarket is accidental. Every light, every sound, every drop of water in that aisle was designed, tested, and measured before it ever reached you. Next time the thunder rumbles over the lettuce and the fog rolls in, you will know exactly what that little rainstorm is doing and who it is really for. If you enjoy finding design hiding in plain sight, stick around. There is a lot more of it out there.